So here's the carrots that I freshly picked last night. I've already peeled them, and then I'm just going to use the knife to take the ends off them and clean them up. Now nothing gets wasted, so the peels from these carrots actually went to the worm farm and the chickens. And these end pieces here, they've still got flavour in them. So what I'll do is pop these into a freezer bag and I'll freeze them. And when I next make a stock, these will go into my stock with all my other veggie pieces that I've saved. In the case of the carrots, I can't really use the attachment. I really do advise that you use hand protection when using a mandolin. It's very sharp and you do not want to have any kind of injury. So please be careful. I can't stress that enough. Because of the shape of the carrots, I can't help that I've got a nice big round one like this and then a smaller one like this. But what I can control is the thickness. So that's why I'm using my mandolin. So at least they're all the same thickness when they get blanched and eventually cook. So as you can see, this carrot here is only this round. But one trick you can do to make it bigger, and especially for Chinese cooking, is to slice it on an angle. So at the start, you put it onto an angle, like so, watching your fingers very carefully. So then what you can do is put the carrot on an angle like this, and you'll get a more of a Chinese style cut. And that way, the carrot that was a small size like that on the end, you can now get to a longer, wider looking piece like this. All right, so now that I've got them sliced, you can see that I've got the bigger pieces and I've got smaller pieces. So I'll go through and I'll separate the bigger pieces and put those onto their own trays. And then I'll just take out the trays depending on which ones have dehydrated more than the others. With these offcuts here, I could save them in the plastic bag for stock, but what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to chop these up roughly and dehydrate these, because I like to have little bits of chunky carrot like this in things like minestrone soup. But I think that will do it. So as you can see, I've just got mainly bigger ones like this compared to smaller ones like this. And if these ones take longer, they'll at least be separate to these ones here that are smaller. So here we go, we've got our boiling water set up. We'll drop the big carrots in first. Just give them a second to blanch. Now I have seen debates whether to blanch or not to blanch. For me personally, I blanch them just because I like the carrots to be partially cooked when I use them later when they're dehydrated. So we're just taking them out now and dropping them into the iced water, and that will stop the cooking process. All right, so I'm dropping in the next batch of all the smaller sized carrots. So as you can see, these guys have stopped cooking. They're quite cold to the touch, really nice. So I'm just taking them out now, and I've got my dehydrating rack here, one of them anyway. And as you can see, gorgeous color. They've kept their color, obviously kept their shape. They're not overcooked at all. And I'll just pop these over the sink to dry. Now we're only blanching these, we're not cooking them. So blanching is basically par cooked. They're still crisp, they're not soft and floppy as if they've been cooked for a while. These are the small pieces that I cut before. I'm just stirring these carrots at the back here, just to make sure that all surfaces of the carrots go through the cold water evenly. That way you don't get any hot spots sitting in the bottom where a great big clump of hot carrot is just sitting in its own little space. So again, I'll take one of my dehydrating racks and I'll just drain the carrots onto the rack for now. Okay, I've turned the water off and I'll get these guys out, they're fine. Okay, I'm fighting for space here. You might be able to see over the back here, I've got kids' schoolwork, so we're sort of sharing space. I've got a bit of baking paper here on top of a wire rack, and that's for these smaller pieces here because they are going to shrink and they will go through the holes in the rack. So just quite simply putting them on the paper like this, excuse the bird noises, and there we go, that one's done. So these are the bigger pieces, and all I'm doing is just spreading them out onto the rack side by side. I'm not really worried about them touching at the sides because they are going to shrink and there'll be plenty of space in between them for the air to flow as they get smaller. I don't want them sitting on top of each other, obviously, but side by side and touching, I'm really not that stressed about it with these carrots. There you go. So that's the rack of the larger sized carrots. Now, some of these will fall through the wire. They are going to get smaller, but that's just the chance I'm going to take with these until I buy the proper mats. And I will have wire racks, spare empty ones down below, just to catch anything that falls through. But by all means, get some baking paper. I think maybe people in other countries call it parchment paper, and put that on the wire just to stop them from falling through. So there we go, blanched carrots racked up and ready to go in the dehydrator. So what I will do is I'll put this rack here with the paper on the very bottom, and that way that can catch the ones that fall through. I'll put my timer onto 13 hours, but I'll check that anyway. And we need to reduce this temperature down to 50 degrees Celsius. That's about 123 to 125 Fahrenheit, I think. Now, I'll check this after a few hours, and I'll check it probably every hour on the hour, just to see how the progress is going. Okay, here I am 12 hours later, and they're all dehydrated. You can hear that. They're all nice and crispy. Now, as you can see, I've got them separated like this because when I had them dehydrating on the trays, I knew what the measurements were. So that's the large ones, for instance. That's the medium. That's the soup ones that I did. And some of the smaller ones have fallen through. That's fine. I'll use those as well. So now I'm going to portion these out in small bags. I'll know exactly how many portions I have. So when I'm making my little soup, I've got that one. That's my carrots. And then when we do a side dish of carrots or maybe a stew or something, I've got the large ones here, and the same goes for these smaller or medium ones here. Now I've got some water here. I'm just going to show you what it looks like when they're rehydrated. So I'll just grab two. That one there, and I don't know, let's grab this one here. Okay, now they'll take a while, so I'll get back to you with what they look like when they've rehydrated. So for now, I need to get these over to my FoodSaver machine and bag them up, and yeah, I'll be good to go. When you're making your bags, such as this one here, just make them a little bit longer than you normally would. Reason being is that after they're vacuum sealed, you need to cut the top off to get to the contents. So the bag is obviously going to get shorter as you cut the bag. So this bag here, I only really need about this much, and maybe that much there for a seal. So I've just left this much because these bags are actually reusable. You can wash these and reuse them multiple times. So it's a great economical way of doing things. They're not a once only bag. As I seal them and cut them, I've still got a few more uses. And then as the bag gets smaller, I'll just use it for smaller things. Maybe for instance, when it gets down to here somewhere, I can seal an avocado or something in, or an onion even, and pop that in the fridge. So all I've just done now is pop the bag inside, close the lid, and I've hit the seal button. It was green telling me it was ready to go because it's powered up, and it's red now saying that it's sealing. And there we go, the red light just completed. So I can now open it up. And there is a beautiful seal. Now with mine, I seal mine twice, just to guarantee that there's a good seal on the top of the bag as well as the bottom of the bag. And there we have it. I think you can see it there. I've got a double seal, and this is now the bottom of the bag. Flip it over, and there we go. We've now got a bag. All right, so right here, this is my carrots, my soup mix. So I'll just open up my bag. Shaking the bag, letting gravity do its thing. Shaking the bag again. Tapping it. So as you can see, that's more than enough bag, but as I said earlier, once I start cutting the top of the bag's going to get smaller. So now all I do is place it into the Vac Sealer, like so. Close the lid. This model here requires you to push down firmly on the sides, on the corners here, just so these locking mechanisms pop out and it's ready to go. Okay, so you can just see at the top of the screen, there's the Vac and Seal button there. So all I do now is push that. And that's done. You can tell by the noise, and also I've got the indicator telling me here that it's sealed. And as you can see, it's nicely vac sealed. So what I'll do now is open it up, and you can see there's a nice seal on the top of the bag, but I'm just going to place that in and just do another seal just above it to double seal it. And I'll just push that seal button, and there we go. And there we have it. We've got a double seal across the top here. I think you can see that in the picture. And we've got some vac sealed dehydrated carrots, which will be, in this case, for a soup mix. Now what I can do is get a marker, and up here where I cut this off, I can write the date and what the contents are, and that goes into storage. Now to do it with all the other ones I've got over there. Doesn't look like much, but at the end of the day, I've got 4 portions of carrots for different meals. So I'll probably have one for a soup, and then I've got one that I can put into a stew or a casserole, or maybe as a side dish, and the same with the other 2 actually. So here we go. These aren't ready yet. These are the ones I dropped in water when I started the process. So as you can see, they've already started to swell and unfold. And that was just in the time that I did this. In the time that I did 4 bags, you can see these are already starting to rehydrate and they're starting to look okay. So there you go. We've now got hydrated carrots sitting there in the bowl. They were little tiny shriveled up pieces, but look at them now. They look fantastic. And that's what they're going to look like when you rehydrate them, or pour them into, say, a soup, and they rehydrate in the soup. Fantastic. We'll just take one out. Look at that. You've got the color, you've got the shape. Fantastic. And because they're blanched, snap it. As you can see, it's still firm. It doesn't flop and bend. That's still quite hard to bend in half. Now look at that. If you weren't told that that was dehydrated and rehydrated again, would you really know the difference? So there you go. Carrots that have been dehydrated and rehydrated from start to finish. I hope you enjoyed that and got something out of it. If you did, please consider giving a thumbs up with the like button down below. It just tells YouTube that people are watching and appreciating what they see, and it helps my channel immensely. Thanks very much, and I'll see you next time. Bye.